Hey everyone, Kale here. Welcome back to the channel. So today starts video 1 of a new series called Lessons Learned, where I'm going to be sharing lessons that I learned during my time living in Los Angeles, California, and what I continued learning after that. And so LA, I call it my master's in life degree, and was really when I really did a deep dive into New Age spirituality. It's when I consciously and intentionally went down a very specific path around intuition and healing and energy and manifestation and meditation and all the things, right? And had an incredible experience at Mark Mesidorian's Intuition Gym, which is something he no longer offers, but was an incredible experience, and to what I really owe the development, the foundational development of intuition and discernment as it relates to connecting with spirit guides and angels and all types of other guides, and understanding and clarifying and listening to my intuition and honing in my discernment skills. And so it's been a wonderful journey and a very challenging one as well, a very trying one, and one that has been filled with loads of learning and growth and missteps along the way, which has all, worked out perfectly, of course, and, it's stuff. It's real stuff. And so I wanted to offer this because I feel that it could be helpful for those who are maybe more starting out on this journey and navigating this realm of things for the first time, or maybe coming back to it after a time away and like reintegrating it in, or perhaps you've been on the path for quite a while, and some of these things might speak to things that you've thought about or have wondered about, or have had maybe even frustration around. And so, as the reading suggests, the first thing we're going to focus on is why readings sometimes resonate and then nothing happens. And naturally, I'm not going to be able to cover every element of that. And of course, what I'm speaking to are things that resonate as true for me, that I've learned from my own experience. As always, please use your own judgment, your own discernment, and what resonates as true for you. The offering is here if it lands, and if not, please feel free to let it pass by you. All right, and so I had a number of things that I wanted to address and helped and pulled tarot cards and oracle cards to help anchor me into some key points. So what I'm going to do here, I'll show you the cards, and then I'm going to read the message that came through. We're going to see how it lands after that. I may come back and do a touch point, or actually I might along the way just kind of do the more channeled message and speak to an element of that if that feels resonant. So you're kind of going with me. I'm learning in real time here how all of this is going to unfold. So please bear with me as this path unfolds. All right, so the first card anchoring us again into why readings sometimes resonate and yet nothing happens, we have the Badger and Ginkgo. Okay, the Badger and Ginkgo in reverse, and this is the card of healing wounds. All right, and I'm actually going to show you all the cards right now. This is the card of healing wounds. This is the predominant one, and then I will kind of pull up the other cards when we're touching on it. But just to show you what they are, we have Soil, which is the card of stability and simplicity. All right, and then we also pulled Judgment in reverse. Okay, Judgment in reverse, and I'll show you what it looks like here in upright. All right, and so again, I'm not going to go through the guidebook meanings specifically. Some of them are going to kind of be woven within, and I'll pull up the card, and you can again just feel into all of that for yourself. All right, so we'll start first, and I don't remember if I've said this because I've started this over a few times, but so then what I ended up doing is I sat in ceremony with my guides and just kind of was an open vessel for whatever words came through. And yeah, I think it comes out nicely here, and we'll figure it out as we go. All right, so again, why readings sometimes resonate yet nothing happens. Starting with healing. Sometimes our hearts hurt and we're desperate for healing. We're desperate for our pain to be validated. We're desperate to be seen and heard. We're wishing, waiting, and hoping for the message that will save us. the one that tells us we're on the right track, the one that tells us the miracle is about to occur. All of these things can influence how we perceive and interpret our readings. All of these things can distort our filter, and, depending on where we are in our healing journey, can be the very things that draw the readings to us. And I'll pause there, and I want to expand a little bit on what I mean by that. Depending on where we are in our healing journey, can be the very things that draw the readings to us. You know, for example, if your energy, right, is like super, super strong around like needing a very specific message to come through, it may be that that energy is syncing up with energy that's sharing that message. And so then you're watching it and receiving it and like, yes, like this is telling me like this is the thing, right? And so depending on like what it is that we're really wanting and needing, those things can come in, not always as true and clear indicators of what is right and true for you right now, all right? And so that begs the question naturally, so then how do you know and what do you do? All right, so we'll continue to answer that question, which is we get really honest with ourselves, okay? We check to see our motives and intentions for watching or receiving a reading. We ask ourselves what needs we're projecting onto it. We get honest about what we want it to say, what we hope it's going to say. We ask ourselves if we're truly open to the guidance that comes through and willing to act upon it. We ask ourselves if we're demanding a miracle. And I'll pause again there. I'm going to share more about this, but again, so then speaking to the fact that if we're aware of our energy going into a reading, if we're aware of our intention and motivation going into a reading, that can kind of give us a clue of like, okay, hold on here. Like, am I truly open to whatever this is about to say? Or am I like really wanting to make sure it says this specific thing? You know, am I also in a space where like I'm needing and relying on a miracle? And while that may be the case, and there's nothing wrong with that, just the awareness, right, of what we're bringing into the reading, where we are mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, can really help us understand what's being shared, and we can check our discernment through that. And I'm going to expand on kind of how that ends up, how we can check our discernment through that awareness of knowing how we're coming into a reading. Okay, and so the question that comes up then, of course, is, so how do you know what you can trust? All right, because the reality is that sometimes the miracle is about to occur, and you may be feeling into that. Sometimes you really are on the right path, and despite what's going on around, and so you know, that validation and confirmation is absolutely accurate sometimes. So then how do you know when it's actually not, right? And so to address that part, creating that space of honesty and openness, right? Like when we're like, okay, how am I going into this reading? Where am I at? What am I needing? What's going on? Creating that space of honesty and openness allows for greater discernment and understanding. When you remove the wool over your eyes and are willing to face the truth, you remove the blocks to accurate guidance. Okay, so going into the space, which is like, okay, I understand where I am, I understand what's going on for myself, but I'm also, I'm open. I recognize that, like, okay, yes, I could receive certain messages that may or may not be for me just because of the state that I'm in. I want to be mindful and aware. I'm open to maybe hearing a difficult truth if that's what needs to occur. You know, just having that openness and creating that room, and we're not so locked in to what we want it to say and what we want to hear, and what we like need to hear, allows for, again, like that space and that understanding, and then that willingness to face what's really before us. And so again, that can help remove any blocks, right? Because we're open and we can receive that, and so it removes the blocks to the accurate guidance, and then can allow the discernment process to just be easier. And then we can also trust it, right? When we're willing to face the truth of a thing, and we're open to that, we can then trust, like, here's what's really resonant for me. This is what where my discernment is, and it just is that way, right? And always trust your intuition, always trust your discernment. And the reality is if it happens to be that you are like kind of too close and it's just not the spot, and you can't receive it, well, your path is going to unfold, right? Your path is going to unfold, and the growth will happen, lessons will be learned, experiences will be had, and there is grace and compassion for that experience, and there must be, there has to be, and I've certainly learned in my journey that that's the way that it goes. And also, I know the lighting is kind of wonky right now, I apologize. It's, what can you do? Can't control nature. Okay, so let's see. Again, going back to that, willing to face the truth, removal of blocks to the accurate guidance. Things become cleaner and purer. Okay, actually this sun part, slight shift, here we go. All right, things become cleaner and purer. And you'll know. Remember, the guides want you to know. Your higher power wants you to know. Whatever resonates for you, the angels, they want you to know. All right, so they want you to know the truth. They want you to see it and experience it. Messages will be repeated, right? And so, for example, if you're like, gosh, like, I'm open, I want to be open, I don't know, I feel like I'm on the right path, I don't know for sure that I am, and again, so long as it's like we're really, really open to that, and if all you're getting the repeated messages of you're on the right path, what else are you going to do, right? So you're going to keep moving forward, and things are going to happen as they happen, and if there needs to be a pivot, that's going to happen in the correct timing. So whatever needs to get worked out will get worked out. It's just that awareness and understanding where our own pain is, where our own resistances are, that can really help us navigate through readings, okay? It says, the more honest and open you are, and the more willing that you are, the more that truth and core knowing will make itself known, right? There's a reality that, well, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but, can something make itself known? Or, if we're like, stay away, you know what I mean? So the more open we are to it, that core knowing can make itself known to us. And then it becomes, are you ready to accept it, right? And that's where we've got our judgment in reverse coming in, right? Because sometimes we have a refusal to listen. Sometimes, like, we can have a message staring us in the face, and if we're not ready to receive that, namely usually because of pain somewhere, what can we do? And so that's part of that understanding and grace and compassion for this journey of just like, sometimes we are where we are, and that's just going to be what it is. And so there's a reality that sometimes we face the truth and hear truth, and we're like, oh, this doesn't resonate, because of where we are. And other times, again, things can resonate with us, but then if the particular thing doesn't happen because, again, it resonates because of that deep need and longing and that really big desire, but it's not actually accurate to like where we are in our path process or where we are in the journey. And so the more we understand this reality that sometimes we're not ready to hear the message we need to hear, and the more we can understand that, the more we can accept that, the easier it ultimately becomes to hear it and to take heed, to heed that call, to heed that guidance. The more life kind of reveals to us of, all right, what's going on? You know what I mean? Like, we're gonna be taught, we're gonna learn, right? And so as we keep going on our path and things start going in a way where we're kind of forced to face it, right? And then in those moments, here we are, and then we're ready. We become ready. So the path to that readiness is not always easy or gentle or seems to be kind, and yet it is part of the process. And of course, other things are much easier, and that resonant message just aligns in such a way where, like, it can land as that, like, oof, that's a truth. There's a conviction there because we're ready for it. So, and we're able to accept, like, man, that's the thing I didn't want to hear, but like, okay. And so long as we're ready for that, we can receive that. And if we're not ready for it, we're not going to be able to receive it. Okay. And sometimes it's about going back to the basics. That's where we have our soil, our stability and simplicity. Sometimes we stop tending to the basic things in life. We neglect what's true, what's necessary, and sometimes it really is that simple, albeit perhaps a little boring. All right. But honoring and tending to those basics can also create openness, flow, and generate momentum. And a couple touch points on that, which are, you know, sometimes like, oh, this reading resonates, and like this thing is like, okay, it's about to happen, I can feel it. But are we actually tending to the basic action steps that are required to see it through? You know, are we in that moment where it's like, oh, we want the energy of it, and like, yes, it's a need, but like we stop pursuing it fully. We stopped doing the thing that we needed to do in order for that thing to happen. We stopped following the guidance, you know, and we hit that moment in our journey, you know, and that's okay. It's okay to hit those moments, right? We're growing, we're learning, we're sorting it out. But that can also, that can speak to why sometimes something's very resonant, but we're not actually in the spot to actually see it to fruition at that moment. And so, you know, I want to be super clear that this is something that's speaking to a different element than like, you know, just keep believing it'll happen, this and that. And you're going to know the difference, because when you experience the time when you actually are taking the necessary action steps and like doing all the things that need to be done around it, like it's going to feel different than the time when you're not fully doing it. Despite the fact that the hope and desire and need may all be the same, it feels different, and you simply learn that through your process and experience. And so this is not intended to create a doubt within self. It's intended to create a confrontation of reality. And the reality is if you are actually ready for it, like, you keep going, you keep believing. And again, it is a matter of like, again, that honesty is really key, and it's that honest assessment of where you are in your process. And some of this stuff, it really is just experiential, and you just have to sort it through, and you're going to learn, and you're going to grow, right? And as always, as I said, trust yourself, trust your intuition, and keep going in and get really open, okay? And again, around that, tending to the basic things, creating openness, flow, and generate momentum. I've mentioned it before on this channel that, you know, sometimes we don't receive a next step until we've completed the previous ones we've received. And so sometimes when we find ourselves stuck or stagnant, there's a reality that we haven't moved forward in something else already. And so why are we going to be given the next step when we haven't completed the other ones? All right. And sometimes that's very specific to the thing that you're moving forward or wanting or needing to happen. And other times it's tangential, and it's like, oh, I've been actually putting off this email and responding to this person, and it has nothing to do with the other thing you're focused on. But again, that's block, that's flow, that's energy. So again, just tending to those basic things, you know, and like doing the dishes, right? Like it can create that flow that we need to keep things going. All right. And again, and it can create space for that miracle. All right. And on miracles, again, there's this reality, right, that like sometimes like that is absolutely what we need, and sometimes that's what occurs. And I think the hard point, the stuck point, and sometimes the really frustrating point, it can be like when it seems as if like that is what you need, that's all that can be done, it's what must occur. And there's a space that's hard tension wise, where relying on the miracle becomes the way of living, as opposed to just living with knowing a miracle can occur. But take this if it resonates, but perhaps like not relying on the miracle, not living as though you have to rely on the miracle, because sometimes that can show us the big, like seemingly like the gap between where we are and where we really want to be. And while yes, absolutely, right, we've got quantum mechanics and all types of leaps and timelines and syncing ups and alignment that can happen, and that can be compounded immediately, and that will happen in moments, and not always. And so it's about getting really honest with ourselves, because we can really want that, and we have to really look at how desperate and deep our need is, and how frantic it is, and how much it's based on like survival, you know, as opposed to just the awareness that a miracle can occur, to keep our minds open to what is available and what's real for us, right? Like we don't have to be closed to the reality and possibility of things moving quickly. Be open to it, and to not necessarily have to rely on that. It possibly points to other things needing to happen first. All right, and that can be a tough one. That can be a tough one to learn, and a real one for sure. All right, so in closing, regardless of where you find yourself on this journey, you will grow and learn. All will be accomplished in nature's time. Okay, so you can, at the end of the day, you can trust that, you can sink into that, you can know that. You are one with nature, you are part of nature, and all will be accomplished in nature's time. All right, so wherever you are is perfect, and I hate to say it, but exactly where you need to be. And sometimes that can be unbelievably painful and frustrating to hear. And there's a reality of where else are you going to be, right? Where else are you going to be? And the healing and growth is going to happen where you are. Okay. And so I will send you off with a Celtic blessing from the Blessed Bee, Lucy Cavendish's Blessed Bee guidebook here, her Blessed Bee oracle deck. I guess it's a blessing cards, not oracles per se. Mystical Celtic blessing cards to enrich and empower. All right, and so just to pair it with this reading, whoever this is for, however it lands, however it finds you, we pulled the card of oh, sorry, wrong page, here we go. A blessing to ease loneliness and bring companionship. So I'm wondering if this might touch on some of the healing and some of the pain that perhaps is influencing aspects of this in your life right now. All right, this is a blessing for when we find ourselves without those touchstones of our humanity, our friends and companions. A period of loneliness, quite different to solitude, can take place for many reasons. We can move away, or lives can change and be reshaped, and suddenly the space we found for each other has been closed off or absorbed by others. Sometimes we isolate ourselves, unwilling to be a burden to any others, and some are born into shyness and paralyzing social anxieties that make the seeking of friendships a terrifying thing. This blessing is for you when you feel alone. Let there be that call, that note, that memory that comes forth to remind you of your innate worthiness. Let there be that smile from a stranger or touch from a kind hand that lets you know your humanity is the same as theirs, and you have about you connections that can be rewoven. Let other gentle hands pick up and do the reweaving when you find yourself unable to perform the task, and let serendipity come to you, guiding you to chance meetings or places where music plays and people move, and the gathering is undemanding of you, yet surrounds you with the quality of inclusion. Let the loneliness begin to break, like clouds slowly moving apart, and the great heaviness of isolation begin to be lightened by loving companions, humans and otherwise, until you return to a place where you know you have within your life those who care for you, and without your presence, their life seems less bright. Blessed be. All right, friends, that's what I have for you. And remember, if you're in that place of loneliness, if there aren't humans or you don't have pets, remember you are surrounded by nature, whether that's earth, wind, water, fire. Like, light a candle, get out into the elements, befriend the trees, the stones, the birds, the foxes, the deer, the animals. Sit by the water, whatever that is for you. Stare up at the sky, bask in the sun, walk under the stars and under the moon. You have companions everywhere, and there are guides everywhere, and seeking to support you and loving you so deeply and tenderly. And I know that sometimes is incredibly difficult to access. And just know that it is there, and I pray for you that access, that it opens more, and that love and support just becomes more accessible, more tangible, and more real and deeply felt in your life. Okay? Thanks for hanging in here with me. I hope that you are well, and I'm sending you all the love and support and strength that can possibly be. And I'll see you in the next one.